My experiences in teaching and art, and even just in being, can be summarized with one word: sensitivity. I would like to talk to you about this and relate my experiences with sensitivity to a metaphor, the spider web. Being sensitive means being a person who senses the world. Perhaps being sensitive is what led me to art making, because art making has enabled me to celebrate sensitivity. As a matter of fact, I became a teacher to get involved in the kind of social justice that wouldn't break my heart. Contributing to humanity was important in choosing a career path, and working with children requires sensitivity. I remember a conversation with my dad, a teacher. He said that teaching a classroom of children meant being connected to each person by an invisible line. Each pull represents a need or a problem, a story from a child, a behavior challenge, a hungry belly, a morning upset. The strings are also peripherally connected to every child's life, family, friend situations, and my dad said that he had to be sensitive to the slightest tug. So, like a spider mastering its web, teaching has become, for me, about understanding the emotional state of each child by listening to the pull of the invisible lines. It is essential that I listen to the vibrations of my web. Sensitivity is fundamental to my teaching, just as it is to my art. A part of what informs my art is a sensitivity to feminist issues, and this part of my art history is fundamental to my progress as an artist. A few years ago, I found myself exploring the notion of the feminine by depicting a series of female bodies involved in various states of celebration. I wanted to explore the way the viewer engages with a piece of art that blatantly forces them to think about women, sexuality, body politics, and power. My intention was to challenge the viewer to think about where he or she stands on female body politics by representing portions of women distorted. The absence of identity in the close-cut and cropped images fetishizes strangers united in the act of looking, and the texturized surfaces invite them to touch, an act that is forbidden to the viewers by the nature of the art's display. Nonetheless, the viewer is engaged with the art through the idea of touch, and by virtue of the subject matter, the scopophilic aspect of the female form is subverted by the texture. The viewer is asked to look at the images of the women from a visible, male perspective. This places women in a role that is separated from the image of man, so the gaze and the viewer become involved in the act of objectifying the images by the nature of looking. Although the three images vary in their degrees of separation, there also exists an element of violence, perhaps because of the alarming tree trunk texture of the skin, the color choice, and because the image is of women severed from their identifying features. It was not my intention to evoke feelings of revulsion, but it ended up working with the theme of exploring what is feminine. There are disturbing aspects of female body politics. Eventually, I needed to arrive at a place of celebration in order to reject notions of female beauty. But in order to get there, I had to force the viewer to acknowledge that there is an ugliness in the act of looking, expecting, judging. My journey with the female form continued, and gradually my work became softer and less aesthetically challenging. I created 2 more images of identityless women, and 1 portrait that I felt captured a sense of the subject. The last image invited me to think about art in a different way. This new theme was about capturing a feeling or essence of subject matter. It introduced me to a new way of looking at identity. Coming back to university for the second summer, I was compelled to begin studio work where I left off after the first portrait, this time with a portrait of my sister Jillian. I like to describe Jillian as my arm, although perhaps I should compare her to a body part that I truly could not live without. She has a way of deeply understanding that touches meaning completely. I am trying to describe Jillian, but my words are not good enough because there is something that makes her who she is that doesn't have a name. It's what I call her ness. While I was indeed compelled to work on a Jillian piece, I came to school with a nearly finished abstract. One day I would work on Jillian, and the next I would struggle with painting over layers on a large canvas. The abstract wasn't working until I began to play with invented symbols, nonsense marks that somehow crossed the boundaries in the painting and made a cohesive community of sorts between each separate section. While I was feeling unsettled about these two pieces, I took on another portrait, one of my partner, Matt. Again, I wanted to capture a sense of him, just as I had with my sister. Of course, I kept returning to Jillian, thinking that while it looked like her, it didn't capture her ness. To clarify what I call ness, there is an indescribable quality in each of us, unchanging over time and unique to our individuality. Ness goes beyond characteristics and personality and speaks to the feeling a person projects and the reaction this inspires in people. I looked back at the abstract with its invented symbols and started to think about them as representations of meaning. I thought that perhaps this meaning could be applied to Jillian's portrait in a way that would convey a deeper sense of her-ness. My goal for Jillian and for Matt became to depict them through a communication that was separate from simple physical representation. While the abstract was about breaking down boundaries as a way of conveying meaning, the portraits would become a way of translating meaning through revealing a personal essence. Once I completed Jillian and Matt, I felt clarity in what I was trying to accomplish through exploring the idea of ness. Setting out with a renewed sense of purpose, I wanted to honor my granny for all that she has encouraged and inspired. I captured her in gentle, monochromatic purple tones. The symbols radiate around her portrait like a halo, alluding to the idea that her ness is angelic. Finally, to illustrate a key part of my understanding of ness, I wanted to explain that it is not something that one can see in oneself. Rather, it is what others feel from an individual. A self-portrait was definitely in order. I carved 2 prints and set them in alternating lines. The images mirror each other, yet the eyes all look in the same direction, at a simple stream of symbols running vertically along the back paper. Each image appears to be referring to the symbols as if they might explain something that remains out of reach. There was no way that I could depict my own ness, and so making a statement about this lack of knowing in this self-portrait became its purpose. Exploring the notion of ness was an enlightening experience for me, one that brought forward the idea that my sensitivity is a strength in art and teaching, and it is a theme that will continue in my overall work. I cannot stop being sensitive, so I hope to use it in my art to communicate depth in my relationships and in my teaching to build strong and nurturing communities. Here I am, a person invested in emotional security, a person who at times feels unbalanced, and at other times embraces the dance. I am a good teacher, and although I am never calm or easygoing, my classroom is usually calm, and it always feels safe. My students know that they are loved, and each tug on our web is either purposely ignored or pointedly acknowledged. Our classroom is a place for emotional growth. The emphasis is always on interpersonal relationships and intrapersonal reflection. In every way, particularly through art, we explore the web and know our community. It is a sticky mess and ever-evolving, this spider's dance. My art is an ongoing progress, and I must continue to challenge myself to be open to the messiness. Taking up the opportunity to work with Photoshop in my second year became a satisfying, though sometimes terrifying, journey with artwork. I did not understand the medium, and it felt scary to be exposed. But art making should not provide a safe haven. Photoshop opened my eyes to the realization that I need to get uncomfortable. I needed to expose my inexperience in order to grow and to begin to form an identity as an artist who grows, changes, feels intensely, and puts art at the forefront, set aside from teaching and life, and into a place that is central to who I am and how I live. If feeling incredible highs and lows is a part of an artist's journey, then I will have to take it. Being a sensitive person is, after all, a part of my ness. I want to be inspired and terrified, challenged and unrestrained. Allowing sensitivity to direct my teaching and art making has released a lot of anxiety I was carrying about being a sensitive person. Now, in thinking about sensitivity as an empowering quality, I can in many ways surrender to instinct and continue to learn and grow as an artist and teacher. I can relax into myself and just take remarks about my sensitivity as a compliment. Because after all I've learned from this program and teaching and art, that's exactly what it is.